Just the two of us. We can make it if we try. Just the two
Oh
of us.
my.
Episode 77, just the two of us. Welcome to High School Backups Podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. It is myself and Sir Jake here, while all
You know
our
what it is.
friends are still recovering from the most recent wedding of Sir Kyle. It was a great time. It truly was. Jake and myself do not have to recover nearly as hard as the rest of them. But indeed, it is just the two of us this week. And maybe that'll be fun, its own type of fun.
It'll be
So,
good. It'll be good. It'll be good.
as you can see, we have what'll be a majority of our, and really our whole episode this week, as there wasn't a ton of news. We did have the Jets picking up Dalvin Cook officially, and the Patriots picking up Ezekiel Elliott officially. Zeke will be playing this week in the preseason, which shows his dedication compared to Dalvin, who probably won't play until the season starts. Jake and I talked about prior to the podcast. We both feel very similarly that there certainly wasn't a huge jump in anything specific for either of those teams. Both
Yeah.
got solid veteran backups, and maybe that's the most important part. So,
I mean, I'm just curious about Dalvin Cook's, honestly, like where he fits into that backfield with Brees Hall and everybody else, and Michael Carter already being there. That's just a loaded backfield. Zeke, I clearly know what his role is on the Patriots, and it's to spell Ramondre Stevenson. But
agreed.
both teams got upgraded. Both teams got upgraded.
Agreed. And Jake, do you mind resetting your stream real quick, your screen share?
Oh yeah, absolutely, I can do that.
Yeah. So, anyways, so that was really the main thing that ended up happening in terms of the NFL. In other sports news, not a lot happened in the NHL and NBA realms. It's their off season. There's really not a lot going on. There really wasn't. And in terms of baseball, we're kind of in the mid-season part here. Most specifically, the AL is still the tale of, well, now only 4 teams because the Yankees are absolute dog meat in terms of fighting for that that AL wildcard spot.
Gotta love it.
There's 4 teams, yeah, because you include all 3 teams in the AL East, besides, of course, the Orioles, who are number 1, and then you include the Astros, who are number 2 in their division. So that's kind of the race for the wild card, and then the West has their own, or the NL division, excuse me, has their own things going on, but it's a little bit closer considering the AL Central is awful. So, anywho, not a lot going on in sports world. We do have the
Not
Women's
really.
World Cup continuing. The quarterfinal matches are done, and we move on into the semifinals over the next few days. They've been interesting. I did lose a bit when the U.S. lost, as I am quite a bit of a homer. However,
Absolutely.
I have heard feedback that a lot of those matches have been incredible and fun to watch and quite physical. So we do hope that continues, and I will tune back in for the semifinals and the finals. But I was a little salty when they lost, just like the Patriots, where we struggled to
Right.
watch. The few times they did lose in the rounds, it would be hard to watch the rest of the rounds.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm such a football guy that like it matters. Like I'm like shit. It sucks, but I'm still watching the games.
Yeah, and usually there's some sort of money or something on it that makes it a little more interesting. So, at least for myself, not for
That's a
Jake, of course.
secret.
So yes, it's just 2 of us, which means 2 things this week. It means 1, we can focus on one subject for really the whole episode, which we will be
Yep.
doing, which is this tier list here that Jake has shared up. And 2, it means we can talk more in depth about each of these teams without
Yeah.
having to feel like we're being rushed or we won't get our opinion. So it's a nice change of
I'm
pace,
down.
and I think it'll work out well. So. There are some teams on this list that won't need a ton of explanation. There are others that will need a lot of explanation. We did something similar last year where we placed teams in a tier list in terms of what wins we think we'll do. But rather than doing that, we're going to utilize this tier list as our preamble to what will be next week, which will be, with 2 weeks left to go to the season, our official prediction of the
Yeah.
season. Reason why we're doing
Honestly, I think those are going to be very different than these power rankings because I think there are a couple teams this year that are probably somewhere in like the 15 to 18 range that play incredibly tough schedules. I'm specifically talking about the New England Patriots, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
I'm totally with you, and we'll see how that goes. And it, just like last year, it was different for last year as well. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting though, and I'm excited to do this and get ready for it. Main reason we are essentially waiting or doing our prediction for next week so early is because the following 2 weeks after that, I don't know about yourself, Jake. I know a little bit. I have a bunch of fantasy football drafts going on
Yeah, we got stuff
in
going
the
on.
weeks following. So it'll be nice to have a nice long episode next week, which
Yeah,
will be a
absolutely.
fun one. And then we'll start talking fantasy football a little bit more. We'll start talking all that fun stuff as we get knees deep into the football season. So,
All right.
Jake, what do you want to do? You want to go in order? You want to go
Yeah,
backwards order?
I mean, okay, I think there's one thing that we can do right away, right? Like we don't have to discuss this too much. Like we just don't have to discuss that really at all.
It's true.
Like,
For what it's worth, their receiving core is just like last year, a little questionable. But we saw them win with it last year. They still have the best tight end in the league, and in some ways, the top three wide receiver in the or top third wide or just receiver in the league is hard.
yeah,
to
with
beat
Travis
Travis
Kelce.
With Travis Kelce probably being number 3 behind
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. But yeah, I would agree.
I mean, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, and you have Travis Kelce. Like at the end of the day, you'll probably be there at the end, like at least in a conference championship game. If you're not, it's a disappointment. So I'm gonna just throw you up there. Now we could just go in order. I'm fine with that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have the Rams in the bad tier. I just even though you have Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, and normally that can carry, you don't have Jalen Ramsey on your defense anymore. I think they have 33 undrafted rookies playing on this football team right now.
Yeah, I'm
Like-
with either bad or mid because they do have Sean McVay and they do
Yeah.
have Matthew Stafford, and they were interesting 2 years ago, but last year they were so
Yeah.
boring that they're somewhere in the middle of that like atmosphere being so awful and also being interesting. So I would have them high, bad, low, mid. Is
Yeah.
where I would have
Like, I think their entire season really depends on how Matthew Stafford plays and if the defense can be even remotely competent. But I can't, like, in good faith, put them any higher than like top tier bad.
Yeah, and the one thing I will think about here is their division remaining not the greatest division in the world would still bias me towards putting
I
them
mean,
mid. But
I would say, yeah. No, I mean, their record might be better than bad because they play the Cardinals twice.
yeah, they might just be
But-
bad in general because the Cardinals are
And
worse.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, you have the 49ers and the Seahawks in that division. We'll get to them later. But I think those are both probably better than most teams in the NFL at this point. With the Cardinals, I don't think we need to talk about this too much. I'm going to say they will be drafting top 3. Mostly because I don't know when Kyler's coming back. And even when Kyler comes back, I love Kyler Murray. I think he's a top 10 to top 8 quarterback in the league. Their roster is just absolutely atrocious. I don't know if I trust Gannon to get them ready. Not ready, but like, I don't know if I trust him year 1 to right the ship entirely. And this roster is just bad. Like, they're not good. Their offensive line struggles. Their defense is bad. They have pieces, but they don't have any, like, they have no solid foundation. That's where I'm at with the Cardinals.
I agree. There's really not a bright spot in this team. There's at least not much of them. I mean, you can say Hollywood Brown, like he exists, and
Yeah.
he's cool, and James Conner is still existing and good in his own right, and they both have great fantasy value just because of they're the only ones on
I
the
mean,
team. But
We also saw how bad they were without Kyler last year. So if Kyler is out even until November, I mean, they could be staring at an 0-9 record.
yeah,
0-9 record. Does that mean they go and get, Caleb Williams in the draft? We'll talk about that.
it definitely. And then we'll transition right into the Falcons here. I know you're higher on this team, Jake, and I am too. I would definitely consider them an interesting team. That's
Yep.
exactly
Okay.
right, but-
I was gonna see where you were at there. I was gonna say going to be interesting. I think it's more of a byproduct of their division than it is the team that they have set up, though. Like I've been pretty vocal about the fact that I'm not in love with Desmond Ritter. I don't think he's gonna lose the Falcons games necessarily. Like, I think he's smart. I think he's decent, but I don't see him being like that dude that's gonna win you games. But in Arthur Smith's system, you don't really need to do that because Bijan Robinson and Cordero Patterson are just going to get the ball handed off to them 20 times a game each, and they want to win with the run game anyway. So, and I don't think I could name a receiver on the Atlanta Falcons right now. But their division is bad enough
Wait,
where I
you
think
can
they
name one.
could.
You can name one.
I could. Oh, Drake London, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I'm just dumb. I didn't think about it before I said it, but okay.
No, you're fine, and I think
Like,
their youth is what makes them interesting here. I think they have a lot
yeah,
of youth,
exactly.
and that's what makes them
Like
interesting.
Bijan Robinson, the mix of Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London, plus the mystery of whatever Desmond Ritter could be, because I know a lot of people think he's great. I know a lot of people think he's going to be out of the league in 2 years. I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm not high on him. I think he'll be a high end backup, but like he won't lose you games.
Yeah, and maybe that's the most important thing in a division
Yeah.
that's so tight. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think about Baltimore? I think I know where I want them, but
I want them in the playoff pushers tier. I really enjoy like they could be going in the going to be interesting tier with OBJ and Zay Flowers, but I think as long as you have Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, again, a great quarterback coach combo and a decent roster, you're going to be pushing for the playoffs. I wouldn't necessarily put them in that Super Bowl sleeper category because I don't think they're quite good enough to do that. And with the rest of the AFC, I'm not sure if they're going to push that at all. I mean, Lamar Jackson's going to keep it interesting, though, and I think Tyler Huntley's at least a decent backup to have. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to put him in the playoff pushers category. Where's your thoughts?
are you on the same page that they're a low playoff pusher though? Like we're talking
Yeah,
like
yeah.
6, 7 seed type thing, not like
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't.
yeah, 100% same place.
I with playing in the same division as the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns, who I all think are going to be in this like going to be interesting or higher tier. Yeah, I mean, the Bengals. We're going to get to them in like 4 teams, but they're going to be much higher than anybody else in that division. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And Bills.
I mean, where are you on the Bills? This is going to be This is going to be more interesting, I think.
So we've talked about this a little bit in passing almost, and
Yeah.
certainly a little bit on the podcast in general. I think we both have them in this sleepers or pushers area. I don't think they're where they were, which would have been contenders last 2 years. I think they've taken a step back, and I don't think it's a huge step back. I do think it's a step back.
That's interesting. I was going to put them at the low end of the Super Bowl contenders tier. I have 5 teams that I'm like, I think all 3 of these teams could win a Super Bowl, and it'd be like a realistic prediction if you did it. I think the Bills are probably like the least likely to do it, but I think they're likely to get there, if that makes sense. I'm comfortable putting them at the high end Super Bowl sleeper
Yeah.
tier, but I had them in the Super Bowl contender tier. I mean, again, I'm a Josh Allen fan. I'm a Patriots fan first, but like Josh Allen is that dude. I love him. I think he's an athletic freak of nature.
Yeah.
Top 3 quarterback in the NFL, and I like Sean McDermott as a head coach. I know he took a step back without Brian Daboll last year. My bigger concern is that kidding.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot.
No, you're good. But my bigger concern is that they lost Tremaine Edmonds in the middle. I think their defense is a little bit less physical than it was. But I mean, I'm comfortable putting him in the high Super Bowl sleeper tier if that's where you want to put him.
So yeah, and I'll give you my reason a little bit. So I agree
Yeah,
with
of
the
course.
fact that there's definitely like a certain amount of teams that have a good chance of winning. I
Yeah.
personally believe that if we're talking about contenders, there should be 2 from each conference, and there should be 4.
Okay.
So if you think they're your 5th team out, I would say that
Yeah.
makes sense, and I would put them at the sleepers.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
I was thinking about it like if you placed a bet on them, would it be realistic?
Oh, see, and that's a good thought as well. And I mean, well, the thing is, though, not necessarily. I think sleepers means realistic. I think
Okay.
that contenders means you're likely to get your bet back. And I don't know if we can really put the Bills there. 'Cause
I think our like Super Bowl sleeper versus playoff pusher categories are going to be real interesting when we get nitpicky here.
I agree. Okay, so
Panthers.
I would
Go.
almost, dude. We could put the whole AFC South in going to be interesting. I mean,
NFC South.
NFC South, excuse me. Yeah, we could put the whole NFC South going to be interesting. Besides the Bucks, maybe, but yeah,
I did this beforehand, and I had the 3 teams from the NFC South and going to be interesting. Then the Bucks in one of the other categories.
yeah, I'm fine with
I mean-
this. And I don't really know much to talk about. Like they have a great young quarterback and a lot of young, a lot of young pieces in their team on defense and offense.
Yeah.
That we could definitely see excel.
Like I'm coming from the fact that like you have Frank Reich as your head coach, who has been very successful in the NFL. I know that his term in Indianapolis was a little bit more tumultuous than other stops, but he's been very good at coaching quarterbacks throughout the course of his NFL career. He's done a very good job with most of the quarterbacks that he's been with.
Hmm.
And I like the fact that Bryce Young, I mean, I get it. There are a lot of people who are concerned about Bryce Young's height, which again, I will eye roll at. It's never been a problem. It's not going to be a problem. He's going to be just fine. I like the fact that their wide receiver core is at the very least competent. Like I like the mixture of DJ Chark, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, all those guys. Plus they have Tommy Tremble at tight end. And I like the addition of Miles Sanders in the backfield. I mean, at the very least, they're gonna be pushing for the top of the division, whether that means they're pushing for the top of the division at 6-11 or however it may fall. I think it's gonna be interesting to watch the entire NFC South at the very least.
Yeah, they could be a 6 seed, like as a wild
Yeah.
card, if like one of these other teams, like the Falcons, were to play
I'm
together.
Well, what's nuts is whoever comes out of the NFC South is the 4th seed, and they very likely could be like a 7-10 4 seed, and I just think it's funny.
Agreed. And can we skip the Bears? Because I would personally
Yeah,
like to do the Bears with the Vikings because
I'm okay with that.
I think those two teams are very much intertwined in sort of their setup.
Yeah, I think you and I are probably on the same page here. I don't think I have to like.
I don't know where else you'd put them. They're not a sleeper. They've been there.
They've been there
They've
the
been
last
there
2
2
years.
years
Yeah.
ago, and they were almost there last year. And I don't think there's anything else to say.
My only concern with the Bengals is that they did lose a lot in their defensive backfield. I think they lost both safeties and a corner. Eli Apple's not like might be an addition by subtraction anyway, but like at the end of the day, they did lose some on that defensive backfield, and I would be concerned about that. But the offense is good enough to make up for it, so I'm not necessarily like overly concerned.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, especially considering we see a team like Kansas City do it year in year out, where no matter
Yeah.
how bad their defense is, including the lowest, like a bottom 5 in the league.
I think we should also preface this: we're assuming everyone is healthy. As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, they're going to be here.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the kitten is interested in your mouse moving around the screen. So,
Do we want to move to the Browns?
yeah. Sorry, I couldn't see if it was Browns or Cowboys next.
Yeah, we're Browns.
So, Browns next. I just want to put them in bad because I think they're bad people. But I'm
That's
also
fair.
fine with putting them in. Okay, they won't be drafting top 3. Let's be honest.
No. Honestly,
They're probably mid.
I don't. Where do you have them? Where do you
Probably
have
mid.
them?
I'm gonna put a mid. That's where my decision's gonna be.
See, I have them in going to be interesting. Again, lower tier going to be interesting because I think second year of Deshaun Watson getting back on the football field, as awful of a human being as he is. My bigger issue is like, can Kevin Stefanski actually coach this team to be halfway decent? Because they've had top end talent year in and year out, and they can't figure it out. So like, I'm good with putting them in the mid tier, but I thought they were more like lower, going to be interesting, could make a playoff push if things go right, kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but like,
Well, I only like 2 parts about this team, and it's Nick Chubb, and Myles Garrett, 'cause they're actually good people and they're good players, and everything else about this team is just ass. So that's where I'm at. That's where
I mean, their offensive line is solid.
Yeah, well, Joe Thomas isn't there, so I don't have any bias towards them anymore. Again, that's
I mean,
why I
that's
got
fair.
it
That's fair.
mid,
I'll
but
put them in the high mid.
that's fine with me as well.
I mean, this very well could be like a 7-10 football team. They very well could be 10-7, but like mid.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Or
Cowboys.
speaking of mid,
Where are
right,
you-
So, no, I'm just kidding. So the Cowboys, right? They got Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
They have an increasing in age, but not in a bad way, a very good way, defense, right? With Micah Parsons,
Yeah.
and Trayvon Diggs, as well as other pieces as
Mhm.
well. They think they still have Xavier Rhodes, right, for another year or two.
They also added Stephon Gilmore.
They also added Stephon Gilmore, and then they added, like I said, Brandon Cooks on offense. They did lose Zeke,
Yeah.
but he really wasn't fitting their mold anymore. Tony Pollard was that
No.
guy. Thank you for letting me draft him for so cheap. And so
My bigger concern here is that they scapegoated Kellen Moore. Like they scapegoated Kellen Moore, so their offense I think is going to be a little more bland.
they have
I
to
think
be
they're playoff pushers.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
they have
playoff
to
pushers.
be.
Like
They have to be.
I mean, like a lot of people, I think, or at least Cowboys fans, are going to want to be Super Bowl sleepers because every year is their year. But no, you're realistically like playoff pushers. You should make the playoffs. You should be around 10-12 wins. I don't think you're winning the NFC East. We'll get to that probably later. It's a team that plays in Pennsylvania, not named the Steelers. But yeah, you'll be in the playoffs. I mean, if you surprise us and get to a conference championship game for the first time in my entire lifetime, good for you. But yeah, I mean, solid football team. in
Yeah.
a bad conference.
Yeah,
In a bad
a
conference.
bad conference and a subpar division that can't seem to have. It has two teams that are constantly wishy-washy, and then
Yeah.
a team that's either god awful or really good. So, and then themselves, who's just constantly mid, but
Yeah.
mid enough to be in the playoffs. So the
Yeah.
Broncos. So we all overrated the Broncos last year. I know, like some of us had them rated lower, like
I did.
on the third and
Yeah.
fourth, but they were worse than any of our predictions.
Oh yeah, I think I had him third last year. I think I had him above the Raiders, but that was about it.
Yeah, they were significantly worse than any of our
Yeah.
predictions or really anyone else. No one would have told me that a team with Russell Wilson had 4 wins or 5 wins or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not realistic. So this year, he does a significantly better coach. I don't think it fixes all their problems, but I would
No.
consider them very interesting
Yep.
solely because of Sean Payton.
Yep, I think I mean, I'm putting them above the Falcons and the Panthers
Agreed.
here. I mean, you get Sean Payton, you go from Nathaniel Hackett to Sean Payton. It's like upgrading from a 1990 Ford Focus to a new Maserati.
Well, you an
I
old Maserati, but a classic Maserati.
a very, very innovative Maserati. And honestly, I mean, I've seen Sean Payton do it with smaller quarterbacks before. Drew Brees was 6 feet tall, 5'11". I mean, Russell Wilson still has the athletic ability to get out of the pocket, make plays, do some things. I think Sean Payton's going to do a good job. And honestly, I mean, the Broncos aren't a bad team. Nathaniel Hackett just didn't get any production out of them. Tim Patrick going down for the year, I
That
believe he
sucks.
went down for the year.
Yeah, he
That does suck for them.
'Cause he was so good last year.
But they do get Javonte Williams back. I think he's going to be ready for week 1, which is beautiful. Mostly for my fantasy team, but also for the Broncos. And I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. They could go 7-10, and I wouldn't be surprised. They could go 12-5, and I wouldn't be surprised. But they're going to be interesting.
Agreed. 100% the same. I mean, I really, really, really want to put the Lions in playoff pushers. Am I alone in that?
We're on the same we're on the same page, bro. I think they're playoff pushers. I think honestly, I mean, from what I've heard and from what's been reported, the Montgomery Gibbs backfield is better than the Swift Jamal Williams backfield from last year. They add Jack Campbell in the draft, which again they grabbed Gibbs and Campbell at some very odd positions. Like I didn't give them a good draft grade. I still wouldn't give them a good draft grade, but they did improve. They're better now than they were at this point last year. Jameson Williams is going to miss the first 6 games of the year. Whatever. I'm not too worried about it. This team, if they play as hard as they have been, they've improved. They've gotten better. Adding Brian Branch to their defensive backfield, adding C.J. Gardner-Johnson, not Christian. I'm all over the place tonight. In their defensive backfield, I mean, their corner room is light years ahead of where it was last year. This team should make the playoffs and honestly should probably win the NFC North. But
Yeah, you're probably right. And I kind of tried to yeah, they should win it, right? And
yeah,
I go back and forth, and the
like
reason why I'm talking
Vikings
about-
bias aside.
Yeah, I mean they were what 1 score away from having 4 wins or 5 wins or whatever instead of 12. What was that? They had
Yeah.
7 single score or 1 score games. So
Yeah, the Vikings, yeah.
yeah. So and the Bears, we don't really know. I think they're good, and I think they have some good pieces, and I think Justin
Yeah.
Fields can continue to carry a team, and prove why Ohio State quarterbacks aren't awful. We'll see. C.J. Stroud did not look great.
CJ will be fine. I think all of the rookie quarterbacks from this year are going to be fine. I mean,
Yeah. And now,
based on what I saw. But
speaking of dog shit teams, can we? I know before we were talking about this, you only had one team in the will be drafting top 3. I would
Yeah.
heavily consider putting the Packers in that, and as like if we had to
I
put
get it.
3, I would put them as one of those 3 teams.
I mean, I don't think we have to put 3 because I don't think we have to pick. Like, I don't think we have to necessarily put 3 teams in that category. We could put 1 and just be like, this team is that bad. Like,
I mean-
there is no possibility where they're drafting outside of the top 3.
I look at it, and there are only 3 teams that would even fit that category personally. And I mean, we already have the Cardinals there. I would put the Packers in a future talk. I would probably put the Raiders if I were to put 3 teams of all the teams here. I'm fine with
That's
putting the
interesting.
Packers in bad, because they don't really have any.
See, I was gonna put them in mid. I think they like for the sole fact of the matter that I think they have decent young receivers. I like Christian Watson. I like Matt LaFleur as a head coach. I know that he's made some shady decisions, but normally he's pretty decent at winning football games. And their offense really wasn't what won them games last year. Their defense was very, very good. And they add Lucas Van Ness on the edge, who I think is going to be at least a very good rotational pass rusher. I mean, they also added Luke Musgrave, who's a decent pass catcher. They also added who's the guy out of South Dakota State? Who is it? The other tight end.
Oh, did they, Kincaid? No, Kincaid was on.
No,
Notre Dame.
Buffalo. They added 2 tight ends in the draft who I think are going to be solid, and I'm pretty sure they drafted a wide receiver. So like, there's going to be some pieces moving, but I think the Packers are probably going to end up around somewhere 6-11, 7-10, which is why I would put them in the mid category.
I'll put them low mid. I'm fine with low.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with low.
Because
mid,
I just don't
fine.
think they're going to be this bad. Like, if I was going to put a team down here, it would be this one, and I don't think they're going to be that bad either. I think the Texans would fit more into this category than the Packers were, but that's a different story.
Yeah, I mean we have 3 of the 4 teams right here, right? So in this.
Yeah.
So let's quickly go through this. Why am I spacing on the 4th team? Oh, never mind. Anyways, so yeah, CJ Stroud could be good, but who the hell is he throwing to? They have that guy they drafted who played really well.
I love
against the
Tank
Patriots.
Dell, dude.
Tank Dell
I
seems
drafted
kinda
and
goated.
stashed him so fast in one of my fantasy leagues.
He kind of seems kind of
Stashed him
goaded.
so fast.
I can't lie. So I would put them in the bad, but not
Yeah.
because of any reason other than they still need another draft. They'll be fine.
This roster just isn't ready yet. And I would hate for it to come back on D'Amico Ryans as like, oh, there's 5-12, it's D'Amico Ryans' fault. No, this team is just not built to win right now. Like, give D'Amico Ryans 3 years, and I think this team is going to be really set up for at least being an 11-win football team at some point. Obviously, they have to, compete with some of the teams that we've got coming up here. But this team just isn't good right now. Like, it's not. You got a rookie quarterback. I don't think your roster's really set. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, let's move to the Colts.
Oh, dude, I don't know.
I have to assume Jonathan Taylor's going to play, right? Like,
No,
do I
don't
have...
think so. Right now, he's
No.
not playing. So right now, if we go based off what it is right now, he's not playing.
Is it a sin to put them at, like, the low going to be interesting tier just because it's going to be interesting to see how AR develops? Like...
I just don't think... So I
'Cause
understand your thought.
he's not necessarily better than any of these teams right here, right? Like, he's not necessarily... The Colts aren't necessarily better than either of these teams.
Well,
But
I'm
at the
more
very
interested-
least, I've got something like...
Yeah. I'm more interested in the Texans and CJ Stroud than I am Anthony Richardson because of the pieces around CJ Stroud right now. There's a lot of young pieces. I feel like we know what the Colts receivers are going to give. Like, we know Pittman,
Yeah.
we know all this stuff. So, as a team, I agree Anthony Richardson's more interesting overall than CJ Stroud. As a team, he's less interesting. I don't even think they're mid, assuming Jonathan Taylor does not play, which right now is the case.
Yeah.
I would say they're like high bad. They're the best of the bad
Okay.
teams.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I threw them at the end of the going to be interesting tier, going, this could be a 4-13 or like a 9-8 football team, and that wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, if they're 9-8, kudos to them because they pieced together bullshit after losing half their team. But fair play.
Yeah.
If they can do that, then I'd be happy being wrong.
I also
honestly.
just think Anthony Richardson is like the most interesting quarterback prospect ever. I absolutely am just like, this dude is 6'4", 250 pounds, and runs a 4.4. I'm so interested to see how he actually pans out.
Actually, so on that subject, without really changing it, diverting it too much, I think the most interesting college quarterback prospect ever because of the draft process was Justin Herbert because he
Yep.
fell so low because of supposed morale and stuff like that, and now he's considered one of the best team players in the whole league.
Oh yeah.
So that was very interesting to me.
Lo and behold, did we not know that Justin Herbert was carrying all of the University of Oregon's football team on his back?
Yeah, it could very well have been the number 1 or the number 2 quarterback drafted that year. I think him and Joe Burrow are both very, very good. Joe Burrow has one, he has not.
With that draft, it's number 2 because of Burr. But
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways.
And I don't necessarily think that's Justin Herbert's fault. I know there's other people on this podcast who would say it is. But
Yes.
I put that
yeah.
mostly on Brandon Staley. Okay, hear me out.
Okay, I know where you're
Hear,
going with
hear
this.
me out. Hear me
Oh,
out.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Hear me out.
whoa, whoa,
Hear me out.
whoa, whoa. Okay. So they're definitely playoff pushers, right? We're both agreed on that.
Hear me out. Yeah, at the very least.
Okay, go
Hear me
ahead.
out. So Trevor Lawrence year 3, right? Second year of Doug Peterson. Obviously, the Urban Meyer experiment was detrimental to Trevor Lawrence and his development in the NFL. But now you have Doug Peterson in there. They went to the playoffs last year. They won a game. I don't think they were necessarily ready for the Chiefs when it came to the divisional round. I don't think that was the Jaguars' fault. I don't think that was Doug Peterson's fault. I think they were just simply outmatched. This team now adds Calvin Ridley. I think Trevor Lawrence takes that year 3 jump that everybody really talks about. Like, I think Trevor Lawrence could be one of the top passers in the NFL this year. And if this team just puts the defense together, which I think they can, I think their defensive backfield still needs a little bit of help. But if everything goes right for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would not be surprised to see them in an AFC Conference Championship game. Like, at the very least.
I wouldn't either, especially when they came
I
back
know
the
that you
way
might
they
not be
did
convinced
Chargers.
by that, but, like,
No, they're either in the playoff pushes for me. So here's the way I would put it at, right? And the way I'd look at the top 3
I
tiers
think you'd
here.
probably do this, right? Like,
No, I would.
that's
have
what
them
you would
both
do?
there. I would have them both there. And here's what
you'd
I'm
have them
thinking.
both here or both here.
Both in sleepers, and the reason why is so for
Okay.
me, the contenders are the people that are going to be in the conference championship. Like, predictably, makes total sense.
They should be,
conference
yeah.
championship. Sleepers for me are people who I feel like would surprisingly lose in the wild card, or lose in the divisional and be like, you know what, they lost to the team that'll probably win the Super Bowl or have a very good chance at it. And I think
Yeah.
both the Chargers and the Jaguars and even the Bills are totally those 3 types of teams. I don't know who else I put
Okay.
in there from the AFC. I think that's it for.
I don't think you do. I think that's
I think
it,
that's
right?
it.
Like,
And those are like, and I think that you could put either the Chargers or Jags there alone and the other one below it and be fine with it. But really,
yeah.
what we're doing is we are essentially saying that one of those teams is with the Ravens and probably going to lose in the wild card, and the other one is the one who's probably going to lose in the divisional. Like, if you look at it that way.
Let me put it this way. I saw some footage of Calvin Ridley at practice, and he just looks so good.
Yeah.
Like, a year and a half off of football did him so well. I don't know why.
Well,
Like, he just looks like he looks fast. He looks like just incredible playing wide receiver right now.
So I've seen that, and I'm a huge Jaguars supporter since.
Yeah.
Ironically, Jalen Ramsey left, and then I liked him when he was a Ram. He was a different person on the Rams, like a normal person.
He was.
And then
Yeah, he was a cocky
I like
dude on the
everything that they're
Jags.
doing. I like Travis Etienne. I like
Yeah.
all of their team, and including Calvin Ridley, because I think it's kind of BS what happened to him in some instance.
Yeah.
I am a secondary Chargers fan. If I had to choose a second favorite team since Drew Brees
Yeah.
left the Saints, I still love Alvin Kamara, even though might be an off person, maybe not. The Chargers are my second favorite team, and therefore I would also have them up there slightly biasly. However, those 2 teams, that game could have easily been the AFC Championship, as it felt like it was
yeah.
that high stakes. So.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, honestly, I was gonna put the Chargers up here anyway. Like, you don't have to convince me. I think Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore are gonna go nuts. It would not surprise me if Justin Herbert is statistically the best passer in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Like, it would not surprise me.
Dude, and on top of that, and I'm sure you kind of probably feel somewhat similar to this as well. Justin Herbert's always had okay third receivers. He now has a amazing third receiver. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
take it.
I mean, Quentin Johnson, as long as he needs to develop some stuff, but he's solid at the very least. Like, he should be better than their wide receiver 3 was last year. I think it was Josh Palmer, right? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. It was Josh Palmer, right?
Yeah.
The wide receiver 3 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the Dolphins. I have no problem just sliding that right there, to be quite honest with you. I really don't as long as Tua is healthy, they should be in the playoffs, right? Like, we shouldn't think too much about that.
I kind of like how this is all going off here. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't really know how much to talk about. They were a good team last year. Tua was hurt in a very unsafe way. Hopefully he is not hurt
Yeah.
for the long term. And I like it. I think they can make the playoffs.
Like, I just don't think there's much to talk about. They're basically the same team. I like I like the Devon A Chain edition, but like, there's nothing else to really say.
Agreed. They did lose.
Do you want to
Gesicki,
skip
though.
over the Bears and Vikings? They did lose Gesicki, but they weren't using him much last year anyway. So
Yeah.
like,
We
but
can
like, do you want to
skip
skip
all
the
that.
Vikings and Bears for now?
Yeah, I
or-
kind of want to save him for last. And let's do the Patriots. Unfortunately,
Go ahead and let me know what you think.
I genuinely do feel like they're gonna be mid. I do think that their ceiling is in the playoffs. I think that their floor
Yeah.
is like could be not very good. It could be like 5-6 wins.
Yeah.
But I do think for that reason they're mid. They'll probably have about 7 to 9 wins.
I would argue that that makes them interesting. To be quite honest with you, with the whole Bill O'Brien thing coming in replacing Matt Patricia, I don't really think we saw the best of the Patriots last year, and they still were 8-9, whatever. They've got a much tougher schedule, so this is where the differences between where they're at and what their record prediction next week might be is going to be very, very different. This team at worst could be 5-12 if everything goes wrong. At best, if everything goes right, I think they can end up around 11-6. So that's why I would put them in the going to be interesting tier. I think it's going to be interesting to see how like Juju fits, how Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry play off each other, how Mac Jones develops with Bill O'Brien, who's a real offensive coordinator instead of Matt Patricia, who is, a defensive guy calling offensive plays. I think you could have had anybody off the street come in and call plays, and it would have been better or at the same level of Matt Patricia last year. And honestly, I think this defense got better. Like, ironically, Devin McCourty not being there, I still think this defense got better.
Yeah, because as much I literally love Devin McCourty, I know we all do as
Yeah.
Patriots fans. I don't think Jalen Mills to Devin McCourty is the biggest drop off in the planet.
You add Seago, and apparently Marte Mapu is like the best
Dude.
linebacker of Patriots practice.
Yeah, literally him, and then you mix them with the other young pieces that they have over at that side, and you're like, wow, like this team, like
Yeah.
Joe Bentley, and like all these other pieces, and then we saw why can't I remember his name? The rookie, literally running.
Seago. Christian Gonzalez.
No, not Christian Gonzalez, the rookie on the line, whose name?
Something Keon White.
Keon White.
Keon
yeah.
White.
Keon White was running through. So imagine Keon White, Christian Barmore, and then like
You got Judon
you got
Uche
Judon
and
Uche. Like, dude,
and
like,
Dietrich Wise still like.
they're still gonna have that lineup where they're able to
Yeah.
filter people in and out, and it's gonna be huge. Kyle says hold up in the chat. What do you want, Kyle? I will wait for you.
Rams solo, yeah, they're fucking awful.
Rams are solo. They are bad, and last year they were bad, and until something goes differently this year.
There are 4 good things about the Rams. Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, and Cooper Kupp. Outside of that, they're garbage.
Aaron Donald almost retired. Matthew
All
Stafford's
all
not
respect to
awesome.
everybody who plays for the Rams, but like objectively, this team will not be good. If they are good, credit Sean McVay for being one of the better coaches in the NFL.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, while we're at it, Jake, let's just put the Giants in drafting top 3, like where they should.
Yeah,
be,
let's
right?
do that, right? Let's
Let's
yeah.
just
While
put it
Kyle's here, we should just like slap it in there.
Yeah, because that's where
No,
they deserve to
but
be.
like
Patriots, I'm fine with putting them in going to be interesting, but
down here. I'm not
Yeah.
like.
I just expect them to be mid, and that's really where it is. But I understand the interesting part lies in the fact that they could be really bad or they could be pretty good.
I wouldn't even say they'll be really bad. Their record could just show that, like, could trick people into thinking they'll be bad.
Yeah, and I get that. But certainly only interesting because we're Patriots fans. I'm sure everyone else just thinks they're awful.
I mean, that franchise guy had him ranked 15th in his power rankings. I think this is perfectly fine.
Sure.
If y'all don't watch that franchise guy, you should. I'm a football junkie, so I absolutely love his offseason ranking videos, but a lot of people don't. We already said it. We're going to throw the Saints in the going to be interesting tier. I'm just going to put all 3 of these teams together because, they're going to be interesting. Derek Carr did not play well last year. He just didn't. I hope a change of scenery helps him. They have Garrett Wilson. If Michael Thomas plays well, I mean, should be set. Alvin Kamara being suspended. You still have Jamal Williams. I think Jamal Williams can fill in
Maybe
not necessarily
Kareem Hunt.
his pass catching role, but like you might get Kareem Hunt. You still have a solid defense. Your defense has been solid for the last few years. Like this team could challenge for the number 1 seed in this division.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Agreed.
The entire NFC South is interesting, except for the Bucks. We'll get to them later, but like
I mean, you can just throw the Bucks in the top 3 if you want. I mean, or bad either or.
I was gonna throw them in bad. I don't necessarily think it's guaranteed here, but like they're like the team around the quarterback is fine. their quarterback room concerns the hell out of me. But
I mean, it would too. And bye, Kyle. Enjoy the rest of your honeymoon.
I'll throw them in bad. I mean, I don't think there's really much. I mean, that's actually where I had them, but we'll not talk about that. We'll talk about the two New York teams anyway. Where do you have the Giants? Honestly, like where do you think? Because I don't think they're playoff pushers. Like I don't necessarily think last year was a fluke, but I don't necessarily think I would put them even after last year as playoff pushers.
It seems like so many teams got better, and like that's supposed to happen every year. I don't think the Giants got better,
Yeah,
like at all. Like, they're the exact same.
I
they
don't know
were
if I
last
necessarily
year.
agree with that, but like
Well, like that's the problem. Like,
I think their wide receiver room got better. Like their wide receiver room definitely got better. The Giants.
I mean, the problem is though.
I mean,
if
it's a
you
bunch of
have-
slot guys, but like they got better.
Yeah, but if you have a bunch of tall corners, like those slot guys aren't going to do anything unless you just do a crossing route every play, and like that's predictable. So,
I mean, they also had a Darren Waller. Like it's not like.
So the problem is like what is like going to be interesting means that we're interested in where they're gonna go, or we feel like there's a large variation. I just think they're gonna be
Like there's a large variation. Like the Giants could be awful or they could be in the playoffs. Like I
don't
genuinely
think-
feel like that's a realistic.
I don't think they'll be awful, but I don't think their variation is huge, right? Like I think they'll be somewhere between 8 wins and 10 wins.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine putting them right behind the Patriots and it's going to be interesting. Do you want to put them at the top of the mid tier? Like I'm fine with either
Yeah,
or of
and
these.
I don't. So here's the thing: it'd be either top of the mid tier or lower the playoff pushers. But there's so many teams that got better that they're only in the mid tier because I think that they'll be one of the last teams out of the playoffs.
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with that. I think that's fine. To emphasize, this does not like this going to be interesting tier does not mean they're going to be better than this mid tier. It's just placed where it is because they're going to be interesting. They could be here. They could be here. They could be here. Some of these teams could be right here. But
I agree.
yeah,
I
so
agree.
interesting. The Giants will be mid. They'll be mid.
Yeah, and
The
again,
Jets.
okay, they're interesting. They're probably the most interesting team in the whole.
At the
goddamn
very
league.
least, they're interesting, right?
They gotta be.
I could have put them here.
Yeah,
I could put them here, but I could put them right here. Like
but I have people putting.
at the very least, you've got
yeah.
like I'm not putting them up here. I'm not putting them up here. I refuse. This team is too young to be up here. I don't care that you have Aaron Rodgers. At the very least, you're going to be here because this could all go off the rails, and you could go 6-11, and Robert Saleh gets fired, and you're hitting the reset button on everything, and you're starting Zach Wilson again next year, or this could go really well, and you're 11-6, 12-5, because I still think your team is categorically worse than these two, but probably slightly ahead of the Patriots, especially with your quarterback situation. I don't,
Yeah, definitely.
I don't have any like crazy thought process that Mac Jones is better than any of these three quarterbacks because he's not. But yeah, I'll put them in the going to be interesting. I think they could be low playoff pushers. Like I think they probably end up in the playoffs, but with a loaded AFC, maybe not. The Raiders, we already said it, they're bad. They're probably above the Bucks, but less. Like right here, yeah, we're good with that. Sorry, I transition quickly to the Raiders because I don't really necessarily care about them.
No, you're good. I think they're right. I just think they'll be bad. Like I don't even think they'll be mid. Jimmy G's hurt or whatever. So yeah, I think they're fine. I think you're fine.
Again, I don't think we really need to talk about this either. They're going to go right there. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They didn't really get any worse. Their defense lost some pieces, but they replenished them. Picked up, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter.
Can we
Done some good things on the defensive side of the ball.
While we're at it, can we just throw the other Super Bowl contender of the 49ers up there, please and thank you?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Which is so ironic because it's freaking Brock Purdy who will be back eventually. And it's like, isn't that so crazy that the rest of their team is such A++ that like they could have a B- quarterback and still be fine? Like that's crazy.
Bro, the hype around Brock Purdy is hilarious. I mean, I would put him in like the C to B- tier of quarterbacks, right? Like he's there, he's good. Like he's again one of those dudes who's not going to lose you games. He's not going to win them for you, but he's not going to lose them for you either. Trey Lance, on the other hand, that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold is also here. They're going to have a quarterback room that just starts 4 different guys this year. It's going to be hilarious.
Oh,
But
that's bad.
And then they'll somehow still end up in the NFC Championship game. You never know.
Yeah, well, the NFC's so bad that it doesn't help either. Like, we literally have 2 NFC teams in the sleepers and playoff pushers right now, and like, it's just because they're all so bad.
Here's the real sad thing is I don't know if any of the NFC teams fit in here, but
I was looking at it. I'm like, what do we have left? Like, I don't know.
I mean, I'm just gonna put this team in bad right here too. I don't think the Commanders really have a lot to talk about, to be honest with you.
I
Their
mean,
quarterback situation
It's
is in
Sam
disarray.
Howell, dude. It's Sam Howell. Oh,
Bro, if Sam Howell ends up being like a solid quarterback, it will be one of my better predictions of all time. Because if you remember from last year, I think I had him at QB3, but like also unproven talent that I'm not going to hedge my bets on.
no, they're probably winning 5 games.
Yeah,
Honestly.
hear me out.
Okay.
I mean, the team was basically a playoff contender last year. They were basically in the playoffs last year. They were 10. I think they had what, 9 or 10 wins.
Yeah, they're just below.
Yeah.
They're just below the
You're-
Patriots.
Yeah, you're year 2 of Kenny Pickett, so like obviously I think he's going to take a step up in the same offensive system. I think George Pickens is really solid. I think Darnell Washington adds something to the team that Pat Freiermuth can't, where Darnell Washington is like a 6th offensive lineman on the field, so I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel from them. I don't mind Deontay Johnson as like a receiver too, because obviously George Pickens is your wide receiver 1 at this point. And I like Mike Tomlin as a head coach. I think they're probably playoff pushers. Like, I think this should be a 10-win team. And if they don't come out as a 10-win team, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so.
That's
funny.
my thought process. Feel free to refute that. Like,
No, and I'm trying to think. Like, I agree. Mike Tomlin's the GOAT. Like, he's probably like the guy who has kept a team that at times has been completely irrelevant, still relevant,
Like,
pushing for the playoffs.
if you're making a tier list of head coaches, like Mike Tomlin probably is a high tier 2 head coach, and the dude just never loses. Like,
yeah, I don't know how much I agree with the whole George Pickens thing. I like Deontay Johnson more like George Pickens, but Deontay Johnson plays an outside receiver, like a number 2, like a Mike Williams almost.
okay,
Where Keenan Allen plays like a number 1 slot, and it's sort of like that situation where Pickens plays that number 1 because he's
Yeah.
versatile. So I agree with that. I sort of. I don't necessarily agree with which one's better. But I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't. But at the same, like, I would be in my mind
Okay.
more likely that the Jets make the playoffs than the Steelers.
so do you want to put them like down here?
Well, again, I don't think there's a ton of variation.
Or-
I think they're high mid. I think like they're the least mid, but they're
Okay.
still mid.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I mean, I think we're gonna get roasted because people are gonna think like the Patriots are above the Steelers here, but I don't really care.
No, well,
Um,
that's the thing. Like, where do you put the most interesting? We have it right in the middle because we're talking about how varied it could be from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, how far. And those teams in the middle, we don't really know because the Jets could be anywhere, the Broncos could be anywhere. The whole NFC South is a big question mark, and the Patriots could
Yeah.
be awful or they could be pretty decent. Like,
And for anybody who's gonna be like, how could they be 12-5? Honestly, with Bill O'Brien, I think this offense takes a huge step up, and I really don't care what you say. This team was 8-9 last year with essentially the equivalent of me or you calling plays.
yeah.
Like,
No, I would have been better, unfortunately.
and they were 3 plays away from being in the playoffs with someone who has never seen an NFL offense calling plays.
Yeah,
If I saw Trent Brown cut block on a pass play one more time, I was gonna lose my fucking mind. But-
fucking mind. Okay, so Seattle, I think playoff pushers. I think
Yeah,
they're the other team. To be
Like-
honest, they
Like-
they take a step up. I almost think they're the lowest of the sleepers. Like, we're talking like a sleeper. Like, they are the most Super Bowl sleeper because they weren't that far
I
last
don't
year.
know if I trust Geno Smith that much, dude.
Dude,
I
last
know-
year
I just
he
don't
was
know if
a
I
couple
trust
plays
Geno
away.
Smith that much. Yeah, but like, don't get me wrong. I think Geno Smith's gonna be fine. Like, I think he'll do essentially the same thing he did last year. I just don't know if I trust him to take that step up where this team makes a Super Bowl over either of these two teams.
I mean,
And like, honestly, I think there are 2 Super Bowl teams in the NFC. Like, I don't know. I look at the way these rosters are constructed. I mean, maybe with the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he takes off and goes for 80 catches, 1,000 yards, and 5 TDs, and really adds. But like, I'm fine with it. You know what? I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue this one
Well,
too hard. I
That's what
don't
I'm
think it's out of the
saying,
realm of
like-
possibility. I'm good with it.
Like if Jackson Smith-Njigba is your third best receiver, that's an amazing thing. And on top of that,
Yeah.
look who like Kenneth Walker's going to be in his second year, and he's actually going to start the
Yeah.
full year. Like that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think he's only going to get better. So, I think
I just question their defense. I question their defense a little bit to be up here, but I get it.
I
Like
feel
do.
like
I understand.
they got Bobby Wagner back, right? Isn't he back for a year? So,
Yeah, he's back.
So
Um,
okay. Well, they're going to win the division next year, right? Like
Who? The Titans?
Titans.
No, the Jaguars will.
Oh yeah.
But I do think they're here. I do think they're
Yeah.
here.
We have
I think they're
lot of
better than the
AFC teams
Steelers.
in the playoffs. We have 2,
Yeah, but like
5.
that's the thing. Well,
8.
that's the thing, right? Like with the AFC, I could see all but like 3 of these teams making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I
yeah.
could like anything that isn't here down. I could see the Browns making a playoff push with Deshaun Watson. I could see the Steelers making a playoff push because Mike Tomlin never seems to have a losing season. I can see the Patriots making a playoff push because they have Bill Belichick and the offense should be better. I can see all of these teams could make playoff pushes.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, yeah, I see the Titans being there. They got D-Hop. They solved their biggest issue. Like they lost A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
They didn't have anyone to catch the ball, and D-Hop is that person.
Yeah, they just replaced AJ Brown with older AJ Brown, but that's okay.
Yeah, even though A.J. Brown was like king last year, so
He was feasting.
Okay, so this, in my opinion, is going to be the hardest for us to go off of.
Yeah.
So here we both, and if you've been listening, you know that we're both high on the Lions, which is why they're in playoff pushers. Whereas these two teams we're not necessarily as high on. Me and Jake very much agree on how we think the NFC North is going to go.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings take a step back. I think that the Bears are slightly better, and they certainly have a better quarterback. But the Vikings have significantly better weapons around. I think Alexander Madison is really good, and I think that he's been overshadowed by Dalvin Cook. They still have the best wide receiver in the league, and in some ways, maybe the best non-Patrick Mahomes in the league. Was he number 2 on the top 100 list, Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, there you go. And
If he wasn't, he should have been. Like, let me put it that way.
So I think we put the Vikings in playoff pushers. I think that's one of those things. But
Right down here.
yes, I genuinely think the Bears are super interesting. And
Oh yeah, I think
well.
honestly this might be the most interesting team in the NFL this year.
Yeah, besides the Jets, 'cause,
well,
like the Jets are really
like-
interesting for bad and good.
with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm with you on the Vikings. I just don't see them being able to replicate last year.
Yeah.
Their defense is still incredibly bad. Let's not mince any words. They're very bad. And obviously, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. I think this defense was like historically awful last year or 2 years ago. But Kirk Cousins should have you around the 10 to 11 win mark, which should make you at least a wild card in a very bad NFC. Like, the NFC is bad. Let's just be frank about it. Like, we have these teams in interesting, and they make the playoffs again, but like they're mid. They're not exciting. They're not interesting. Like, they're there. The Green Bay Packers are Aaron Rodgers-less and honestly Hall of Fame quarterback list for the first time in our lifetime. I don't think Jordan Love is a Hall of Fame quarterback, if you can't tell.
Not yet. At least not yet.
Like, the Bears could easily push at 8 and 9 for a wild card spot, and I think the Vikings are better than the Bears are, at least talent-wise, and I think they're coached better. I really like Kevin O'Connell as a head coach. But Justin Fields makes him the second most interesting team, especially the fact that he has DJ Moore, and they added Roshan Johnson, who's one of my favorite sleeper running backs in the draft. I think he's going to bring a lot of value. They got rid of David Montgomery. I forget who they replaced him with, but it was somebody interesting.
It was the guy from Carolina. It was what's his name? He was their bell running back.
Chuba Hubbard?
No,
Deontay Foreman?
Deontay Foreman, and they still have Khalil Herbert, who was the dude that's been
Yeah.
like one of the grossest backup
Like,
running backs.
This team is just going to run you over. Like, their running backs are straight up just going to run through you.
Which is
There's nothing else to
because their
say.
Quarterback's not going to run through you, so
No, he's gonna run. He's just gonna run by you.
So I'm pretty
And
happy
their
with this
defense
one.
isn't awful, so yeah. I mean, I'm set with it. If you want to make it more even, I'll drop the Patriots to the mid tier. But I genuinely like objectively, I'm trying to be really objective about this. I just think objectively they're interesting.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I would almost like, in terms of how we set this up, I almost think interesting should be below mid. And now
I'm
looking at this
fine
and
with
see
that.
and then just leave the colors as they are because I do think that interesting still like it like looks a little funky, but the mid should be higher. But I like that right there a lot, honestly. Um, I think the AFC is very top
I'm okay
heavy.
with that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah, the AFC is ridiculously top
and the
heavy.
NFC is bottom
Or
heavy.
the NFC is top. The NFC has two good teams, and honestly, I don't like the fact that we have this year, but I'm perfectly fine with it. Just because, again, I think there are two Super Bowl teams in the NFC. Like I don't know, but that could be the coldest take of all time, and it could be the Dallas Cowboys or the Detroit Lions getting the Super Bowl
I
somehow.
mean,
I
that's
don't
a
know.
fact. Go Jared Gotham, all right? So, anyways, if Jared Goff brings them to the Super Bowl, I will personally give.
I would die.
I would give someone $100. I don't know who it would be. Maybe my
Jared Goff getting to his second Super Bowl? You kidding me?
that would be insane. So anything else you wanted to add to the either list or for the episode today?
Again, just to reiterate that going to be interesting, I wouldn't put it necessarily below mid or like above playoff pushers or wherever we have it, right? Like that going to be interesting tier is filled with teams that could be like 4-13 or 12-5, and I would not be surprised.
Literally.
Like anywhere in that variation, and or the NFC South is going to be interesting because the entire NFC South sucks.
Agreed.
But
100%,
yeah,
and
I mean,
we're on the same page with that. And to be honest, it's really just because there's so much. They're like wild cards in a way, but not wild cards
yeah,
necessarily, or could be, but maybe
yeah.
not. Awesome. Well, it was a great episode, just the two of us, Jake. I'm glad we had time to kind of go through every
Oh,
team.
had a great time.
To go through each every team a little bit more specifically. We do thank you all for watching us. Definitely make sure to go check out the socials, both Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook in the description. We do appreciate you taking time on your Tuesday night to stay with us. If not, on podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast. We do appreciate your time. We hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And see you later.